Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Mindshare podcast. This show is sponsored by Kids Keep in Touch Systems, a two-time international award-winning marketing suite for sales professionals. REM Real Estate Magazine, Canada's premier monthly magazine for real estate professionals. And the ORCF, the Ontario Realtors Care Foundation, enabling and empowering realtors across Ontario to fundraise in support of shelter-related causes in the communities in which they live and work. You can learn more about all of our sponsors by visiting my site, mindshare101.com. Now, over the past few weeks, I have been asking for your support, and today is no different. I'll put it on one final push right here because this week I am on the road with the Ontario Realtors Care Foundation, along with realtors from across Ontario on the motorcycle ride for charity. We are riding in support of shelter-related causes in the communities in which we live and work. And as we all know, shelter continues to be an ongoing challenge for so many people out there. And this year marks my second year on the ride. And I, of course, am working to raise as much money and awareness as we can over these coming weeks. So I'd like to ask you, go over to realtorscareontario.ca, click on Pledge a Rider, find my name, David Greenspan, and make a donation big or small. I'm working hard to be one of the top fundraisers. We just upped our goal, and any support that you can provide to me and provide to this ride, and as well as this amazing cause, is certainly going to go a long way. So I sincerely thank you in advance. Today's episode is number 300. He is a veteran, a 15-year veteran in the mortgage industry, holding key leadership positions, including executive C-level positions for notable retail and wholesale lenders, and a former Retail IMB co-owner. He is the Chief Growth Officer, Executive Growth Coach at 2020 Vision for Success Coaching and Consulting, and Broker CMO's founder. Recognized as an award-winning mortgage marketer and a highly sought-after speaker, he has earned accolades such as Top Mortgage Professional by Yahoo Finance and USA Today, NMP's Top 50 Most Connected Mortgage Professionals, HousingWire Vanguard, and more. His expertise has been showcased at major events like Gary Vaynerchuk's Agent 2021, Inman Connect, NAMB National, Mortgage Mastermind, and AIME Fuse, among others, solidifying his status as a thought leader in the mortgage industry. Joining me on this episode of the Mindshare podcast is Chief Growth Officer Jason Fraser. Jason, welcome back to the Mindshare podcast.
What's up, brother? Thanks for having me, man. 300, I can't freaking believe it, man. 300 episodes. Oh, man, I remember having this conversation at the very beginning, man, at the very beginning. So this is awesome.
Bro,
awesome.
Dude, like talk about a milestone right here, right? Like I was just telling you before we got on air, Leanna and I were talking. I said to her, I said, like, she mentioned that it was episode 300. I'm like, oh my God, episode 300. Like, where did that come from? And we were talking, and I'm like, look, I there's only one person I can have on this particular show. And like, this is no disrespect to anybody else that's been on this show. But it's only fitting that you join me for this, brother. Season 6, 300 episodes into the Mindshare podcast. And for everybody that doesn't know, this guy right here is the man who pushed me to make this all come to life. And Jay, I don't know if you know this, bro, but since then, we've been ranked in the top 10 on iTunes multiple times. We've been ranked in the top 20 best podcasts for the real estate industry. And we are globally ranked in the top 2% of all podcasts. Now, it's important to note that although, getting started and the time involved wasn't as streamlined as it is today, to put some perspective in here, and this is for everybody right now, and I have to look at my notes on this because this is just, some good data here, but it takes a total of approximately 5 hours a week to make this show a reality. And that's over 1,500 hours that have been invested into getting 300 episodes. I don't know what the hell I was thinking when I listened to you. But on a serious note, it has become a very integral and key channel in helping us communicate with our audience. And I know it's a go-to podcast for so many people out there. And to all of you that are continuing to tune in, I can't thank you enough. So, dude, you were the one that pushed me to start this show. I mean, I guess for everybody out there, like, and maybe this is self-serving, I don't know, but can you share with us, like, what motivated you to push me to do this. And did you ever imagine after that conversation, we'd be sitting here on episode 300?
So I'm going to be one of those people that said, well, of course I did. Of course, imagine. And I'm being honest. And the reason why is because, and let me take a step back, because this is all plays into your question, right? Why did I push you? Is, at the time when we met, right, podcasting, was starting to really take off in our industry. A lot of people were talking about it or whatever. But and for your audience, this isn't gonna be a surprise to nobody, but David's got the spark, man. Like when you know it when you see it, and it's like that game recognized game. And the first time, and I'll tell a story because it all again plays into it, and I think people will find this is that David and I met at a speakers conference. Basically, it was a conference to help speakers be better, right? And it was called Deliver. And shout out to Andrew, right? You said
Andrew
Rim,
Pugliato,
right?
He said Rim. Jeff Love,
so,
right? Yeah, Rim.
Yeah,
you know
Rim.
that, right?
I heard Rim, and I'm like,
yeah,
it's man. Andrew's thing, right? So the whole point is that we had the speakers conference. So it was a room of like 15 of us and some pretty big names in there in the real estate side.
Sure.
And so I didn't really know too many people, and David I didn't know. And so we all had to go up on stage, and we basically just learned to be, put ourselves out there, be vulnerable, to learn how to be better public speakers, right? So David, thank God, David went at the end, right? Because a lot of us went on there. I went on there fumbling around, trying to figure shit out or whatever. David goes on there like he trains public speakers for a living, right? He went on there, and like at the end, like if you looked around the audience, everyone's face were like, what the hell are you even doing here? Like, what are you even? And I think that was even one of the people, because like we had a critique after each session. And I can't remember who it was. She was like, yeah, I got a question. Why the hell are you here? Like, why are you even doing this stuff? Because like it was Amy, right? Like, it was just like, what are you even doing here? Like, and because he just killed it. But the whole point of me saying that is David had a spark, right? And so when you understand that someone has so much value to give, someone that can articulate it, someone that truly cares about what he's doing and is passionate and driven, it's like when I see because my job is growth, right, as a coach and whatnot. And even though I wasn't doing that back then, my job was still growth and still had to be the best. And when I saw someone that like, hey, you on a podcast would be fucking awesome, right? Like, excuse my language, but I don't know how we kind of roll here. But if it's good, if it's mindshare, then cool, right? Like, but you're like, man, you'd be fucking awesome. Like you would crush it. You would do good. You have a great voice, right? You have a great presence. And here's the thing: did I know you'd be at episode 300? Absolutely, because you don't go half-ass on anything that I've ever seen you do, right? You didn't like dip your toe in something or like dabble. Is like, you're going to go all in on it. I remember having this conversation, like a podcast, like let's do this and do that. And I think, you just mentioned the rankings and stuff, and that's freaking awesome that like you're getting the credit and that you're getting the push from it. But like, look, it's not a surprise to me at all, man. Because like I know you, I know your worth, I know your value, I know your heart, right? And we've been, it's almost been like 10 years that we've known each other. And it's. I was just thinking about that earlier this morning, and like you're one of my dudes, man. Like you're one of those guys, and like that's so. Whenever I see that, and for all of you out there, as a coach, because I'm sure some of my people are listening or watching this, is that. Like when I tell you this, like David's the example of when I see something, like I'm not just like talking just to talk. Oh, hey, get a podcast because you might be cool, right? Like when I see it, like, and I'm telling you to do something, it isn't for fun. It's because I know if you execute on it, you're going to do great things. And so yes and yes, man. Like, and so I'm glad that I was right. Hey, I love being right, so I'm glad that everything that I thought would happen did happen, and I love it for you because again, like you work, right? You put into it. You're a practitioner, and I think in a world of mediocrity, especially in our industry, as you want to see those people like you rise to the top,
brother. I am man. You got like, you know what, everybody? That's been a great episode, Jay. That's it. We can. Dude, seriously though, you got like the hair standing up, man. It means a ton. You know that. I've told you that many, many times. You are a brother. I look up to you. We talk, we got advice that we talk about with each other. I mean, there's a lot of good things that goes on, and everybody that doesn't know, there's a lot of behind the scenes that goes on, through collaboration and idea sharing. And I am super grateful for that connection that we made back at Deliver that many years ago. You know what I mean? Really are, man. It's been as much the same. You know, I look at the same thing. It's like, you're a thought leader in this industry. You are incredibly well connected, incredibly well respected. When it comes to especially something that both of us are very passionate about, from marketing and branding and teaching and helping people, you know, you bring the best of it. And, you know, that's why it's like, when you said to me, you called me that day, like, dude, you got to get a podcast going. I'm like, holy shit, bro. I don't know. Like, what? I don't know where to start. You're like, yeah. And I need you to have 3 shows ready in the next 7 days. And I was like, man. And I mean, hey, dude, like, you know, you go this far along. We're episode, 300, season 6, bro. And I have you to thank for that. So, I mean, listen, and I got to say to everybody again, everybody that's tuned in right now, and everybody either for your first time or long time listeners, I have all of you to thank that. And you got to know that this man right here was the push to why that happened. So, you know, the other thing that takes me to, which is interesting, because you just brought that up with voice marketing. And I know back at the time we were, and I don't want to say we're coming out of the need and the evolution of video marketing. Mm-hmm. However, voice started to become a very big thing.
Yeah.
And we had the Alexas and the Google Homes and all this other stuff going on. Is voice marketing still as hot now as it was, call it, 6 years ago when we started all this stuff?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's funny because I was thinking about that. I think it's not as hot in the way that we were kind of framing it, but I think what it did was it evolved, right? Because a lot of people, essentially when and then here's the thing, when we were talking about podcasts, were not new. Like podcast at the time when like stuff was starting to like really take shape, podcasts were, at least 15 years in, right? From being like kind of mainstream, would you say, right? Yeah. And so it wasn't anything new, but it was starting the trend. It was starting the trend right now at the time, like, all the different, voice activated assistants and all that stuff was, a real thing. And you're seeing it in cars and the briefs and everything else. Now, I think some of that tapered off mostly because of how stupid the companies got with their devices, essentially, right? I think a little bit played into that. But what I really saw was the evolution of when people were like, I'm doing a podcast, and they were doing it anywhere but a podcasting channel. They were doing it on YouTube, right? Or they're doing it something like this. That wasn't in the traditional, like, I'm on Apple, iTunes, I'm not on Google Podcasts, which I don't even think exist anymore, but, Spotify, those channels, right? Now you see that, right? You have the bigger ones, you have like the bigger people that are doing it, but it's like a crossbreed of like YouTube and then audio. Now you're seeing like the Spotify podcast had, like Gary Vaynerchuk, his podcast now have video attached to him. So I think it's more of an evolution of like the audio. I think is still important. I listen to audio shit every single morning when I'm working out and doing my stuff. Yeah. And so I think it hasn't gone anywhere. I think it's evolved to kind of like a different, like a medium of both, right? Like a video and audio. But I know it definitely, and here's the testament is that I do a thing called growth notes, right? I started it in May. I do essentially a mini podcast every single morning, right? And so I've done it since May, right? So May of this year, I did one this morning, right? Like, so I do them every morning, and it's all based off of growing your business. And now they're anywhere from like 3.5 minutes to like 7.5 minutes. And it's just an audio note that I deliver via text, right? So I have subscribers. I have a little bit under 700 subscribers that subscribe to this, that I send a daily audio, right? And some people are like, I'm writing a book based off of these growth notes that will be out in December, right? That's my plan, is hopefully to have it in December, right? And so like, and it's a daily audio of growth. And it's basically me sharing what I'm learning through my own growth, because I have my own coaches that I learn from that help me be the best version of myself. And so it's the notes that I take from them and lessons that I've done from that, my past coaching, things that I'm just doing as a coach. So it's like sales tactics, marketing, mindset, everything, right? Anything that I think is going to help people. And, some people are like, hey, this is like one of the best things that I've ever heard. Like, this is, I love it. Some people are like,
I could imagine it would be for sure, man. Put me on that list, please.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And so I love doing it, but like, that's an audio, right? And so that's totally, it's not really technically a podcast, but essentially it is, right? And so I'm starting to upload all of my past episode or content to Spotify now, and I'm, growth notes, and it's taken off.
Well, this is what I was going to ask you too. And congratulate. Listen, I got no doubt it would take off. Typically speaking, everything you do takes off. I was going to ask you about that too. Like when we look back, and I think to myself again, I'm put in perspective, like 300 episodes, a weekly episode over the past 6 years. I'm going, and I guess I'll ask you that. Does the voice marketing, does the podcast channel, does it have still an impact, on, let's say, the marketing education for salespeople today? I mean, we saw a lot of people, especially through that, thing a few years ago, decide they were going to get into podcasting and start up a show. And I still hear from people now, yeah, we're going to start a podcast. And I'm not saying anybody don't start the podcast. I guess there's a twofold question here. Is one, is it still playing a role in education and marketing for people? Is it still a major channel? Was it just a hype, or is this a key channel? And I guess in the same breath, why are so many people starting but never finishing, like never continuing?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it still is. I still see a lot of people doing it. I still a lot of and I also look at like bigger name people, like Hermosi has his now, and so I think it is right that a lot of salespeople that I talk to, it's like, or at least the upper echelon, they're again, remember the evolution. It's either kind of like audio or video, audio. But a lot of people do that. Right. And so I don't think it's really fallen off at all. I haven't stayed up to date on like the trends of like data and analytics.
Yeah.
I just look more of like, what do I hear from people? Do I listen to podcasts? Do I still see people posting about, asking about podcasts, stuff like that? And I do. Right. Yep. So to me, it's like, all right. Like, so it's there's still attention there. And the fact that like, hey, I'm able to do this. You're doing your thing. Right. So I think it's still there. Now, as far as staying with it, that's the answer for everything, is the consistency. Is like, and look, and I'll raise my hand, is like, because I had mine that I did, and then I stopped doing it. And it's there's two things when it comes to that, right? It's either you're stopping something to start something else, right? Or you're not getting the lift, or whatever, any number of reasons why. But just like anything, is like the people that like, hey, I make sure that I touch my clients, right? Like once a month in the calls, and then that falls off for 6 months, right? Like, it's just like anything, staying consistent. It's hard, right? It's like, and again, we have different degrees of hard, right? Is it like I have to wake up at 4 o'clock every morning and go out and dig ditches for 8 hours a day hard? No. Right. But human beings like variety, like doing the same thing day in and day out all the time. It gets tough. Right. And like, hey, I would love to say that when I wake up and I'm like super excited to do because I try to do them day of to keep them live and fresh. Yeah. Right. I very rarely pre-record my growth notes. And so, like, do I enjoy doing them every single day? No, there's some days I'm like, you know what? I didn't want to do this. And again, I share that on the growth notes. I'm like, you know what? I did not feel like doing this growth note today. And that's where
that's amazing. The transparency in that is amazing. And a lot of people have fear around sharing that. And I tell people that I say the same thing all the time. Totally sorry to interrupt you there. No, it's you think about, sometimes we even get to, it's like, I'm about to sit down and write the show, or I'm about to record the show, and I'm just not in the mindset for it, but I muster through it. Or like all the video marketing, like I'm not in the mindset to it. Or like people need to make the phone calls you just mentioned. Again, not in the mindset for it. And I'll tell you now, and this is a precursor to next week's episode for everybody, as we look at, how far we've come over here, and we keep using this word consistency. Next week's show is all about exactly that, and how to achieve consistency, the discipline of consistency. Because you said it bang on, the monotony of doing the same thing over and over again. We like variety. We like change. We like something fresh. We get bored of the same old, and how do you keep it going? The bigger question I would ask everybody is, well, why keep it going? And in that sense there, if you say, let's answer the why. Once we understand the why, now we can figure out whether we should or shouldn't. And if we should, then how? Yeah. You know what I mean? Because sometimes like you look at things and like, I know things for me and probably things for you, where you sort of get there and you go, this is a lost leader. Like we've run the numbers. We've looked at the analytics and said, we're not going to continue this. I know I've had different things, and we've been very consistent with YouTube, but we've had different YouTube strategies with video that we've like, we're going to try this. We're going to see what kind of lift it gives. Now, so as we talk about this, and we talk about voice marketing and podcasting consistency, I got to, go to a topic right here, which is right in line with this, but something you and I are passionate, which is obviously about marketing and branding and communication. And I love to learn from you, especially on this one, because you got such amazing insights into things that I don't get to see, let's say, south of the border as much as you do. But I know that your mind is very in tune with all of this, the way mine is. So I'm curious to see, when we look at, I guess, how have you seen marketing strategies evolve over the last, I'd say maybe 12 to 24 months, particularly? I know you deal a lot in the mortgage space. We're very much in the realtor space, very unique, two unique groups, but very similar, a lot of similarities there. What have you seen as, I guess, sort of like the up and coming or the things that let's start with that, maybe trending, up and coming.
Yeah, I would say if I'm looking at and at least I could, from looking at MySpace, right, and not MySpace,
I was
social media, but
it's exactly
my industry, my area, right, like. What and again, this really shouldn't be like a trend because it's not like new or anything like that, but like short form video and like really being dialed in on the short form video for like TikTok, Instagram Reels, I would say would probably be like where I've seen the biggest YouTube shorts, right? Like that's where I've seen like the bigger lift, meaning like more people willing to do it, go out, spend the time, understanding that short form video works, understanding that like it's an important piece of your marketing stack and your strategy and how you're doing it. So I would say that, if I'm looking at like any change in marketing, because it's tough in our industry, it's like rinse and repeat, like monkey see, monkey do. Like we tend to all do the same thing. We see a trend, someone do something, maybe they're getting a lift, and so they're do it. But I would say you had a couple people really stand out on the short form video space, both real estate and mortgage, and then seeing more people gravitate to, to trying to deploy that. So I would say if anything was like, but overall short form video, Reels, TikTok ain't anything new, right? Like if we could even go back to the Snapchat days of like where, we were doing that every single day, right? Like it's the same type of stuff, little different.
Dude, you were one of the pioneers with Snapchat.
Well,
like that's it's funny because I'm like, I look now and like I got to get on Snapchat, and I know I said to you for years I wasn't going to do it. But both my son and my daughter are on there now, and I figure it's probably a good idea not to be like a helicopter parent over here, but like if I could keep some insights into what's going on in their world from afar. I don't know, maybe safer.
Well, it's funny that you say that because like that's really like how I built my brand as I started with Snapchat. Like that's how I did everything. In fact, at Deliver, that's what was like my presentation was about like Snapchat. So that, what you said, like the helicopter parent, totally aside, but like that's how I got loans from using Snapchat, right? Is like because I knew parents were on Snapchat because their kids were on Snapchat. Now at the time, like sexting on Snapchat was like a big thing, and so like that was like what kids were using. So like parents were now getting on Snapchat. Because I remember the first question, like they asked me, was like, "How are we going to get business off Snap?" Because we were like one of the first mortgage companies on Snapchat.
Yeah, that's what I mean, pioneer, man.
Yeah, and so like, and they're like, "How are we ever going to get deals or loans?" And like, I showed them how to. This is how we're going to do it. And it was because at the end of the day, all I care about is where the attention is. And if parents they're not really on Snapchat, depending on their industry, really doing a lot of stuff, but. Like, and the example I use is like we had a local art and wind festival, right? And so at the time, geo filters were very inexpensive on Snapchat. They were like the first company to really ever do that at scale. And so I put a geo filter, which puts our branding on snaps, because at the time you just like would put different branding on your photos and your pictures. And so I put our mortgage company. I created a cool looking filter, put it on over that Art and Wind Festival. We got a loan from that event because they saw that filter, right? And they just thought it was interesting that a mortgage company was going to do that. I did that at AT&T Park for the Giants, right? I think it's Pack or whatever it's called now, Oracle Park or whatever it is. Yeah. Who cares? It's always going to be AT&T Park to me. But anyway, I did that at the Giants. You can't even do that I did it for, I want to say I spent like maybe $100 to do that for a Giants game, so we had like 40,000, hits on that, views. And then we got a few, leads from that, and that ended up some loans. And again, like the scale of, or the margin, right, on those things were stupid. I spent, I think, $12 on the one at the Art and Wind Festival, right? So you're talking about, spending $12 to make, $8,500, like, hey, that's a trade-off I'll take,
good ROI.
all the time, right? So like, And again, that was a trend at the time too. And that's short form video. But it's a little different now. And so I think with, when I look at marketing, you see a lot of people, now focus more on what I call, it's not that I coined the phrase, but like a lot of people don't refer to it this way, but it's behavioral economics, right? Like,
right.
How, the messaging, how do a lot of what you talk about in mindshare, right? Like, how do I create that stickiness? How do I create that compartment in their mind to stay sticky? That's, different and above everyone else. So if I'm looking at the trend, it's more of using that marketing to go directly to the consumer to create that brand. Not really new in the marketing world, but definitely something that's more newer for loan officers that just didn't even think about doing that stuff a few years ago.
Okay. So here we've been using the word trend a few times here.
Mm-hmm.
Is it, I'll scroll Instagram, or I'll scroll Reels, I'll scroll TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
and more Reels than TikTok, I guess. And I think TikTok is very good at playing to the algorithm and they all are, but
Mm-hmm.
if you start watching certain types of content, it's going to serve you a lot more of that content. Instagram Reels does that to some degree. And I guess where I'm going with it is you'll hear a trending song,
Mm-hmm.
a tune. People create a video, and it could be a video of food. It could be a video of travel. It could be a video of work. Like, I mean, we're talking like the video could be of almost anything, but people have used the exact same song
Mm-hmm.
to pull others in because that's what's trending.
Mm-hmm.
And I've thought to myself, I go, in the moment, maybe a good strategic idea to use that song because that's the song that probably even the actual platform is going to go and find and push through to more people.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess this is, again, a double down here when we talk about it. Like, the big overarching sort of, umbrella to the question is, should people be looking at what the trends are and trying to keep up with those in the moment when it comes to platforms like an Instagram, a Snapchat, a YouTube Shorts, a TikTok? Should they be trying to keep up with those trends? And then more specific, or maybe a little bit more of a fine tune on that, should be pulling out on that tune and trying to leverage that, because again, that's what's going to drive the eyeballs? Or should we go in a totally different way and try to be an originator in your own way where you're not doing what everybody else is doing? What do you see working? What's your thoughts on that? Does the question even make sense?
Yeah, no, it does, because it's, again, I'm big on pattern interrupts, right? So like doing the same thing as everyone else, there's really no value in that. Now, the caveat to that is when you're talking about what is the platform going to reward? What is the platform going to amplify? What is the platform going to help you grow? And if it's trending audio, then absolutely you should be doing that. So trending audio, this is something I share out to, members of my accelerator. There's one every week, right? So there's new trending audio every week. And so I share out the trending audio to them so they could use it in whatever that is, because the trending audio is a great discovery mechanism for other people that don't know you, right? It's the people you don't know. Right.
Okay.
And and that's a good way to connect on there. I know I've discovered people through the trending audio because I look at the audio and who else is using it and whatnot. If it's something that people are using in your audience, and Instagram will give you the analytics on like what people are listening to, what people are watching, that type of content, who they're following, is so that you could mimic them to a certain extent, right? Like, you don't want to copy them verbatim, but just to see like what kind of content, what is resonating with the people that you want to, want them to follow you, right? And, or at least be more engaged with you. So trending audio is a great way to do that. The graphics, all of that stuff. Now, there's also ways to do it. So like, for example, some people will take the trending audio, we'll see a trending video that has a ton of views or whatever, and they'll try to replicate that exact same whole like setup. Right. Where as opposed, like I've taken trending audio and put it on something like totally like, it has nothing to do with anything, and seeing
like I was saying, sort of the food versus the travel versus the whatever.
Right. Like you could use it on a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Now you want the audio to somewhat fit the scene, if anything. But I had a really funny, it was a meme, on Instagram that I found of like, kind of like, hey, just kind of a day in the life of a loan officer with like everything just blowing up around them. But I had like this nice piano music, right? Like that thing took off. And as far as like when you could tell something is like good for people who don't know you is like you see what your non-follower analytics are, right? And that was, for me, it was like 90%. So I was like, all right, cool. Like that's what I want, right? Because I want certain things that are for the people that I want to see it, but I also got to grow, right? So I want to try to, and that was all because I tapped into a trending audio. Now, where I got that audio from had nothing to do with like the type of content that I didn't copy anything other than just taking that trending audio and putting it on my own thing. Right. And so where I got that, I don't even remember like what that audio was on, like as far as like the content behind it.
Right.
So I didn't copy anything, right, other than just taking that trending audio and using it myself. And that, it blew up. Now, of course, your content has to be on point too. You got to know your audience. And here's the thing. The trends, the trends have a shelf life, right? That's why they're a trend. And so like, remember like the people that would like make like real estate or industry like songs, they would take like a popular song and then they would like do some sort of like parody of that or a music video or something like that. And cool, that was hot for like a minute and a half or whatever. And then then there's nothing, right? And so the trends, like you never want to really play to the trends. You want to use them and utilize them, and you want to use any tool in your tool chest. However, you get too many people that are like just focused on that, and they don't really focus on the audience and the content in the audience. Because here's the thing, views don't mean shit if they're not the views of the audience that you're trying to bring in.
Yeah,
right. And it's a good vanity metric, and that's great to see.
I got this many followers or this many views, but it's like, were they even the people that you wanted to actually hear that?
Right. Exactly. Right. Like, so for example, the Mindshare podcast, if like your audience is agents, right? People in the housing industry, right? Just in general. So like if 90% of your demographic were like plumbers, like you would be like, hey, like that's great, but like that's never really going to help. I mean,
I'll tell you something, dude. You bring that up, and I'll tell you. So TikTok, okay, when we began really trying to dive into TikTok and finding what was the messaging going to be, I'll tell you. And again, this is for everybody to listen to, because again, you guys all know Mindshare is all about marketing. We're all about getting the word out there. We're all about that top of mind awareness. And so here we are venturing into TikTok, and we're trying to figure out, what are we doing? And at one point, it started getting to a point where I was doing these like rants, and I was ranting about something. And I mean, I got a lot of rants that I go off on, but I mean, the reality is the topic itself, it was garnering views and it was garnering an audience and comments. But when you look at the topic and you look at the audience, you go, but that's not who we are. And that's not who we were trying to attract. So although it was effective and working, it actually wasn't in line. It just wasn't in line with what we do. And we had to adjust, and we did adjust, and we're still finding our way. I mean, do we have it right? I don't know. Right now, we're comfortable with what we're doing. We're seeing good metrics from what we're doing, but it doesn't mean that, and just to what you just said, it doesn't mean that, you shouldn't be paying attention to what's next or looking for that next opportunity, right? Or that it's going to continue to work even. Right. Now, as we say that, beyond the trends, what channels are you seeing right now in today's landscape, for our audiences, this housing industry, as working, as tried, tested, and true when it comes to building Mindshare?
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes down to it, actually, I just posted about this like a couple of days ago in my success group, and that was everything works, right? Guess what? Physical mailers, those work.
Yep.
Cold calling works, flyers work, door knocking works, farming, all of the stuff, even the stuff that you would consider like ancient shit, it all works. Now, how effective it is the juice worth the squeeze based off of the results you're getting? That's another question, right? I know loan officers that use any number of channels and have been their own measurement of success based off of how they get into it, right? And so, but here's what I will say, like when you say like tried and true, like the tried and true is you got to create conversations, right? And that's where I would say that, like, regardless of channel, and again, to me, it's like, it's a given, it's table stakes, right? Like you got to know your audience, right? You got to have the messaging, you got to know who you're trying to reach, right? But after that, it's the understanding that your marketing is to do one thing and one thing only, right? Well, and also understand that your marketing shouldn't be having like 5 different like objectives. It should be one piece of content, one objective, right? But ultimately, Your marketing focus is to create a conversation, period, right? Not to get views or engagement and all. I mean, that's all important. But if it doesn't create a conversation, because conversation is how you make your money.
Yep.
If it doesn't create a conversation, then it isn't working. Right. And that's the barometer. We always try to overcomplicate it with all these different things and, algorithms, this and that, and all that other stuff. But ultimately it comes down to your messaging and content, understanding your audience and saying, I want them to raise their hand and say, he's talking about me. He's speaking directly to me. That's my challenge. That's my obstacle. That's my, object, whatever it is. He knows where I'm at. Right. Or she knows where I'm at, whoever. Right. And again, I need to take the next step to have a conversation, because that's the only way it works. If you are just putting out content, the tried and true stuff would be like, I have flyers, I'm doing all this other stuff. Okay, is it creating conversations? Like, is it working? I think it's working. Well, based off what? Feelings? Or do you have like analytics and data saying it's working? Right. And if they don't, then it's not. To me, my definition of works is that it's dependable and repeatable. Meaning, if like I need to create some leads, some prospects so I could start filling my pipeline, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, right? Because it's dependable and repeatable, and I know it's going to get me there.
Examples of what would you consider something like that then for you, let's say, or for even the people you're helping?
Yeah, absolutely. So like if I would say like, and again, some people it's not dependable or repeatable, just depending on how they how they do it, but. Here's an example. Like we mentioned short form video, right?
Yep.
I have someone that, I used to be a client when I was working in the lead generation space. And so one of our clients, and he still is, right? His name's Josh Dobson. Great, right? Generated thousands of leads, right? Like not just overall, but like monthly, right? The guy is consistent and crazy on like TikTok and Reels, short form video, right? Another one is Neil Dingra, right? What they do, their strategy and whatever, it's dependable and repeatable. It works for them, right? It's generated, millions of dollars in income for them based off of doing that. To them, their process and system is dependable and repeatable. A good friend of ours, Karen Carr, right? Yep. Her YouTube strategy, right? Dependable and repeatable, right? Now, I would say overall, YouTube's probably the best dependable and repeatable strategy that you could deploy. It's one that a lot of agents and loan officers aren't willing to invest the time in doing. But it's a dependable and repeatable strategy. I know like me putting out content consistently is dependable and repeatable for me.
This podcast is dependable and repeatable.
Right, exactly. Right. Okay. That if I do a podcast episode, it's going to help me one way. It may not help me like instant gratification. Right. But like, I know, and I could, and look, I could just go for my own like lead generation that I've had over like the last 6 months to people. It's all based off of what I'm putting out there. And I know if I continue to, if I don't put out content for a week, like it's noticeable, right? If I then just decide to up it and I know I'm going to get more calls, I'm going to get more people asking. I had, I had one this morning. I have 2 other discovery calls today for, coaching and stuff like that. And it's all based off of me going out and doing what I do. And I know that if I do these things, that I could depend on it and it's repeatable. And I know I will get some traction, whether, in the next 30 days or the next 90 days. What do I care? I'm just stacking for the future too, right? And if I continue to do it, guess what? That means that 30 days in the 90 days, if I do it for the 30 to 90, what does that mean? That means that every 30 days I'm getting the same results, right? That's what consistency brings you. Right, because again,
I was about to bring that up and say therein it lies again when you say what's the biggest mistake that anybody's making when it comes to any of this stuff. As you talk about dependable and repeatable, I look and say this comes right back to that word consistency. That's exactly where I was going with it. Right, find something that works for you, and then do the best you can. You brought up flyers. I always tell people, hey, they work, but you got to get, and as you said, make conversation. You got to get out there and door knock so that you can actually support the flyer. You want to do the video or you want to do the podcast, you want to put it yourself out there online. Mm-hmm. Then again, you've got to figure out a way that not only to put the content out there, but to engage with the people. Somebody said it really well recently on the show, and they said, don't just be interesting, be interested.
Yep.
Right. And get involved in the conversation with people. Mm-hmm. Now, Jay, as we talk about this lead gen, and we use this word lead gen, this to some bright, shiny object of online lead gen, big lawsuit involving NAR, fake leads.
Yep.
Have to bring this one up. Thoughts? What's your take? Well, what have you seen or learned or heard about? What opinions about it? I mean, to me, no surprise. You know it. I've long been asking the question about who are all these random people going to some random websites to some random realtor, because some realtor shows them some random property. I mean, like hell, if everybody's out there doing their lead generation, prospecting, knocking doors, cold calling, doing the videos and engaging with people, and you can't find people, then how do you think in the world, so I'm going to go off on a tangent now, how do you think in the world that it's even possible that these lead generation companies, it's all legit?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're in a lawsuit now, basically for the fact that like 50 to 60% of these leads can't be verified.
Yeah.
No shit. You're telling me it's possible that these are robots? Oh my God. I can't believe it. Okay, I'm going to stop. What is your take on that? Because that's a big one going on right now. And I think lead gen has had its day on that side.
Yeah. So, I would say in our space, unfortunately, we've had a lot of shitty lead aggregators, right? We've had a lot of shitty lead generators, right? And I worked at a good one. But ultimately, there was times when there was leads that, or lead aggregators or whatever that people were bringing in, that to me, when I was looking at the full, because here's the thing, right? Let me take a step back and just understand this. You will hear a lot of like people talk about like, hey, I'm getting like $1 per lead, or my cost per lead is like 6 or 7. You of course want the lowest cost per lead as possible. But here's the thing. I could get you 50-cent leads. They're going to be shit. They're never going to close. They're going to be, or at least they're going to be like a 3-year nurture or whatever. They're not going to be qualified, but I could get you cheap leads. Anybody can, right? So your cost per lead doesn't mean shit unless you have high conversion, right? Unless those are qualified leads. Now, we also play games with like what the term qualified leads are, right? And I'll tell you right now, this is going to, depending on who hears this or watches this may get me into some trouble. But most lead generation companies are shit, right? And because I've seen the ads, I've seen all the other stuff like that. And look, it's all like great, like I would say it's as close to bait and switch as possible. And so when you look at some of these lawsuits and again, I haven't dived deep because I think this is the one with like realtor.com and whatnot. Like, so I've seen the headlines. I haven't got into it because this is like not new with them. Like realtor.com has gotten sued, or at least shit like this, at least multiple times.
Lawsuits going on right now.
Right.
They cannot verify.
Yeah. And I'm not surprised, right? Because like that's just going to happen. And it's also because the lead generation wants to make loan officers and real estate agents feel like these are deals on a platter. These are fully qualified. They wouldn't be on our website looking at stuff and putting in. They just want information. Guys, I'll tell you right now, I did lead generation at a high freaking level, right? I generated over 300 million in fundings and consumer direct leads, right? Now, with that being said, you know how many freaking leads, right? That ended up being like around like 12 to 1,300 units, right? So 12 to 1,300, right? You know how many leads I had to generate in order to get that 12 and 1,300, right? Over 25,000 leads to get to that point, right? Just think about that. I was in the red way before I was in the black.
Yeah,
it's a numbers game. And the industry standard at the time was like 2 to 3%. Right now it's like 1.2% as far as like conversion ratio, right? 1.2%. So you guys need to think about that. The people that are the people that I know that are converting at a higher percentage when it comes to talking about like this ecosystem, not just all online lead generation, but this ecosystem like realtor.com, Zillow, that type of stuff, right? The agent, premier agents, all that stuff. The ones that I know that are at like somewhat even close to 10%, they are spending on average of like $40,000 to $70,000 a month on this stuff, right? So just know that like it ends up being revenue positive for them, right? They net positive, but the problem, or not the problem, but like just understand that like that's just at 10%, right? And these people that do it are at the top of their freaking game. So just know that a majority of leads are not going to close by a large margin, right? That means like 95% of the people you talk to at best are not going to convert ever. Right.
But I got to throw it out there and say a huge percentage of them is bullshit. I mean, even the numbers, and I'm not even going to try to quote the number that I heard, but if I said to you is either, and these numbers are very different, there's a lot of different zeros here, but 200 million or 2 billion whatever the number is that I heard in terms of how many leads were generated last year in the United States of America, just the United States of America. How big is your population down there?
We're at, I think, 350 billion.
Right. So we're saying about 60%,
not billion, 350 million.
60%, 65% of Americans went online to find somebody to help them with, like, really? Does anybody really believe this shit?
Well, that's a thing. And I think I said billion, but 370
you
million.
Said 350 million is
million. Sorry, not billion, not million, right? Like,
okay,
so,
and that's what
I think the world population is like 8 billion. But like, so anyway, but here's to your point. Let me put it this way. Right now, here's the thing: is there's an incorrect assumption that like these people are on there looking to find someone to help. So that's the first thing that people need to understand. The people that generate forms, like, again, I gave you the stats, are going to be tired. They're not going to close. And here's another stat. Right now, forget about that one. That was a telling one. I'll take you back to 2019 when they did the study of how many leads were sold to real estate in the housing industry as a whole. Right. In 2019. So in the United States and again, it's changes just because of, the COVID years and everything else, what happened, but up to 2019, the average amount of real estate transactions that happened in the United States was around like 5.5 million, right? 5.5 million transactions are done really on average in a given year. Right. So just write that down. 5.5 million, right? Now, of that 5.5 million, like 53% of it is known brand, referral, database, people type transactions, or 53%, right? So that leaves you 47%, right? So let's just call it 50%. So that means 50% of those transactions were not. Now, not every one of those required real estate financing, right? Some of them were all cash deals. Doesn't really matter to agents, but matters a great deal to loan officers, right? Because it's not a real estate financing. So I did all the math. I came up with it somewhere being around that, like when you took out all those people, the referrals and stuff like that, it ended up being like close to like 2 million, right? In the money people, qualified people. You know how many leads were sold in that year? 150 freaking million, right?
That's my point.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Now, here's the thing. When you sell a lead, and I'll give you
5.5 million transactions, and there were 150 million leads sold.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So that means best case scenario. And guys, guess what? All those 2 million were online leads. You know what I mean? Like, so like, that's what I'm saying is that like, they weren't like, so those were lead aggregators that sold leads. Right. So here's the thing is that when you buy a lead and you're like, I don't want to attract like that, that lead will become a lead again. Right. You'll buy that lead again. It's just the nature of the business. But here's the thing is that when you're looking at the number of leads sold and the amount of transactions that are actually like capable, this is what people want to understand, because everyone thinks like, hey, I'm good at follow-up. I'm good at first contact. I'm good at all these things. That's great. Just know that even if you're at the tippy top of your game, when you're coming to buying leads, that you're probably going to be in like 3 to 4% conversion, right? Like, and I'm talking like I was at 5, right? And I was pretty damn good, right?
Yep.
And I wasn't spending nearly as much as like the top one, because it's a numbers game, right? So just know that most of the leads that you buy are going to be shit. They're not going to be qualified. You're going to get crap. You're going to get people that just do it, right? Like and here, guys, like look, I didn't do. There was times when there was people and this was when I was younger, guys. So this is probably when I was like 22, 21 to like 20. So there would be people like that I would fuck around with, and I would like I would fill out a form in their name or something like that, just as a joke, right? Like, or a newsletter or some other stuff like that, right? Now, again, I wasn't in the housing industry yet, So look, guys, I wasn't doing like bad leads. So just, take it from that, right? Now, I know for a fact that and I've heard stories and stuff like that. People would mess around with like, especially if they didn't like a certain lender that did online lead generation in their ads, they would consistently fill out their ads. So they would get charged for the lead and the ad payment. And even though like they had, and just come up with fake shit. Right. So like, just know that now, is it at scale, meaning it really tips the difference? No, but just know that that happens too. And then you, like you mentioned, you have bots and other things and scammers and all this other stuff that are trying to figure out like how they could try to like trick that into making, some money or whatnot. Right. And it does happen. So like, just know that most of the leads are not going to be qualified. Most of the leads are not, and a majority, like at a high amount, are not going to close. They're not going to convert. They're not going to do any of that stuff. And so now I think the lawsuit and again, I didn't get into the depth of it, but the last one that I saw was because that realtor.com was kind of like certifying that these were like qualified leads, that they had like that these were like real people or whatever.
Realtor.com.
And it's just, and they weren't, and they've been probably the most notorious ones that I've heard. And out of everyone that has done the lead generation game, that realtor.com has like more of the system that will put through garbage that is knowingly garbage, but just do it anyway.
They also got a ton of data. They also hold most of the data. Mm-hmm. And we know that a lot of the other systems are scraping that data and potentially grabbing the same so-called lead, sharing it to 1, 2, or 200 different people, maybe 1 million different people. Like, do we think lead gen's seen its day? Like, I call bullshit on it from day one. Mm-hmm. I've been talking about this since day one. 70 to 90% of our business will always come from group number one, the people who know us, like us, and trust us. Whether it's directly from them or it's a referral from them, it always comes from that group. You talk to 10 out of 10 people, that's always the numbers you get. I have yet to find somebody who goes 70 to 90% of my business is generated through online lead generation. Now,
yeah, well, I'll tell you right now, so the people I mentioned, like a Josh and a Neil, now they get referral stuff too, but most of their stuff is online, right? Like, so they're not. Now, here's the difference.
But the tens of thousands of dollars that they're spending, the infrastructure that they have put in place, the people power that they have in place to be able to convert that's also got to be significant.
Oh yeah. So so when I talk about lead generation, I have two different like areas. I have organic, like putting yourself out there, branding, stuff like that, that type of lead generation, right? Then I have people that are buying leads. I will say with like the new laws, I don't know if this affects you guys up there, but like down here, we have this TCPA and like these new things. So like age leads, like that's going to be a thing of the past coming up in January. So like we have new laws down here for like robocalling and texting, and a lot of stuff's already, taken effect, and that's going to continue to do so. I think buying leads has seen its day because, and I'll tell you why, is that when it is down here, and I don't know what happened during COVID up there as far as like housing interest rates and shit like that.
Nobody knows what the hell happened during COVID. We all got fucked.
So down here it was a boom, right? We did double the normal of production. Our rates were very cost, everything, like it was nothing, right? I mean, it was a great deal. It was greatest time to buy a house, right? And so because of that, and because of like refi business and stuff like that, we did double back-to-back years of double the production that we normally do, right? So then we get into like 2022, and because we did back-to-back years of like double production, what happens is those people that would normally like kind of like transition to the next year to be in the money or to do business with didn't happen because we already did them. So we actually are running at a 2-year deficit now, taking the fact then we have inflation. Right. Then we had low inventory. We had higher interest rates. We had less affordability because the house is appreciated, right? Because of the boom, right? Then you take in debt in the households. You take in average credit score, what people have for savings. It like you had all these people trying to get money out of a very small group of qualified, and you took like the normal like buyer age range. Like like I did the math on it, and I said it was I personally thought it was like somewhere like in like the 20s, like 20 million, somewhere around there. Then you have the entire industry going after a very small pocket of people, right, that were in that qualified bucket. So I think when it comes to online lead generation in terms of buying leads from like a Realtor, Zillow, and all these other, I absolutely think it's towards its tail end of being really effective, and just because of what you pay for it, and there's no real, I think at some point, and this is why I focus my coaching. I don't focus on buying leads. Buying leads is not a thing that I talk about, even though it's something that I built, my career off of doing that, and then ads and shit like that. But I think the best thing for the originator and the agent is to have an organic ecosystem of lead generation, opportunity building, using, social media, using YouTube, using email, using everything, right? Including referral prospecting, meaning the people you know, right? Is doing that. So that way you are in complete charge of your business. You're not dependent on anybody to feed you, right? And it's been proven that that is going to create a passive prospecting system that will generate opportunities. Karen Carr, for example, 24/7, right? She built her entire business off of that when she moved, and we all know the story, and that's how she's created everything that she's created.
You know what? I thank you very much for clarifying, and this is great clarification. I say that very sincerely. I keep knocking online lead generation, and I think that we just put a line down the middle there to really be clear on the differentiator here.
Mm-hmm.
Buying leads versus having a very strong content strategy that can create a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And so thank you. And I say this sincerely, and to everybody, let's clarify right now. Yes, you can use online lead generation. You might be sitting there like, and I hope nobody just slammed their brakes and said, Dave, what the hell? Did you just go backwards? No, I didn't go backwards. What I'm saying right now is the online lead gen component of having a content strategy, doing videos we've been talking about today, doing podcasting as we've been talking today. And I just have to pause right now because I just saw my Instagram feed come through because we are live on Instagram right now. Our buddy Jeff Lobb just joined. Jeff
Nice.
Lobb, we are saying what's up. We already dropped your name earlier today. We talked about the Deliver Conference, so we just want to let you know that. I see that you're here, brother. It's good to see you. Sorry. Let me come back to this now. Creating video, creating podcast, having a content strategy. All of the above, these are all channels that you're going to leverage through an online strategy, which can therefore, yes, generate a lead through an online channel. So that's all possible.
Yep.
And I would suggest to everybody that instead of, and there was the line right in the middle was, instead of paying for leads, be consistent, have a strategy, do something to get out there and create communication, create a conversation. And I'll say to everybody, you want to generate new leads, think about engaging one new person a day. One. That's 365 new people a year, and those will be some of the most quality conversations you could possibly have with anybody.
Yep.
Now, as we talk about, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and it's also, people are like, well, I know someone that's great. Like the people that I know are great that are doing like organic online lead, kind of like what we're talking about, like the good online lead generation, right? Like that's their focus. You know what I mean? They're not like doing it passive, right? Just like you, if it's like you are a belly to belly person and stuff like that, like you got to work at it. You got to do what you got to do. The people that I know that are successful in like the buying lead space, they, like we mentioned, systems, processes, a team, appointment setters, like they have all of that built in. So can it be successful? Sure. But here's the thing, like when they get slapped, like if something happens, or because I knew one guy that's like, oh, online lead gen. And then when the TCPA stuff started to happen and then they had to opt in, they had to do these things that just created extra like friction and barriers, like his business went off a cliff. Right? You don't ever want to be in that position because when you're buying leads, you are beholden to other people. That's right. You have no control over the cost of those leads, the quality of leads, or anything of that nature, or how those leads are even coming in. And I've seen some of these shitty ads that people do, and people go in and they're like, "Hey, I'm like looking for this program." I'm like, "Oh, well, I don't have that, but let me talk to you about this." Guys, like it's definitely a different world, but also know that you got to spend more. There's a lot of great people that I know that do great on the lead buying, but like I mentioned, they spend like, upwards around like 40 to like 70 grand a month.
It's huge infrastructure, man.
It's a huge infrastructure and do it, but they've built that into their world of doing it. But like, that's not for the, the 8 sides a year, agent to, you know what I mean?
Dude,
like
most of the people that we deal with, people we deal with in our industry, most of them are entrepreneurs. They're business people. They're like individuals who just haven't got that kind of infrastructure, that kind of backbone to be able to do it. And that's okay. And that's why I always come back to your biggest source of business is always going to be from that group number one, that contact list, and working it and following up with and belly to belly with people and just keep adding somebody new every single day through a variety of different channels, and you'll have more opportunity come your way. Now, as we talk about content, we talk about online, we talk about trends, we talk about marketing and mastering magnetic marketing. One of the things that's trending right now, it's a bright, shiny object, AI. And I would say that there's some fantastic uses for it. I would also say that if I take myself way back to a conference that you and I were at many years ago, when they started touting about chatbots, and then
Mhm.
all of a sudden the same conference started touting about online lead generation,
Mhm.
it's like I see the same roller coaster going on now where we're talking all about AI. And the struggle that I got with that is, first, AI has been integrated into a whole ton of technology for a very long time.
Mhm.
The uses of it, sure, they're increasing, the way people are leveraging it, and there's some very cool tools to it. However, most people are not techie enough. Most people don't fully understand what it's all about, but now everybody wants to incorporate it. I mean, I saw a commercial where Google was talking about the brand new Pixel phone and how it's AI integrated. It's got
Mhm.
AI. And I'm thinking, dude, I got an Android and I got WhatsApp and Instagram and God knows whatever else. And they all got AI assistants these days.
Mhm.
So Google's leveraging the fact that it's AI to say, come and buy this phone. I spoke to somebody the other day who tells me they got a CRM system. Oh, it's great. Oh, yeah, it's fully AI integrated. I'm like, oh, what are they doing with the AI? Well, we're not really using that part of it. But, and I'm like, oh, so just
Yeah.
bright, shiny object. Jay,
Mhm.
what is your take on this bright, shiny object of AI?
Yeah. So I'll be the first to tell you, like, I love it right now. I love using it. I love utilizing it. But here's the thing is that I'm a geek, right? So like, and I'm an engineer by trade. So like, I like getting into the technology and the weeds of this stuff. Now, here's the thing. Most of the shit that you guys hear about in our industry, that's AI this, AI that, it ain't AI, right?
Thank
It's
you.
just, it's automation. And they're using that as like a way to say AI. It's not truly AI enabled like a chat GPT and some other ones, right? And even then you could even make the argument that some of those aren't really true AI either, right? In the truest sense of the term, right? Now, it's definitely cool stuff that it wasn't around before and you could do a lot of stuff with it. I use it all the time for things, right? Now, the same, but just like you said with like automation, like, hey, my CRM's AI, and like, really, it wasn't AI enabled like 6 months ago, and there was nothing added to it to make it AI enabled. So like, are you just talking about the automation that does that? Or even worse, like you said, and this is the key to what you just said, well, we're not really using that. And here's the thing, guys, like, that's the thing. I saw so many, and I still see like a lot of loan officers and real estate agents that are utilizing ChatGPT, for example. I'll just take the most popular one.
Yep.
And I do stuff with it. And then they're asking me, how do you do all that? And I'm like, have you taken 10 minutes, just 10 minutes, to learn, watch YouTube videos or anything on how to properly utilize the tool? Right now, here's the thing. I have the same conversation. I had the same conversation 6 years ago. I had the same conversation 10 years ago, right? Hey, we just rolled out a new CRM. Great. How do you use it? Are you taking any time? Like, I don't use it. I didn't find it valuable. Why not? Well,
It's so
tell me
true.
why you didn't. How much time? Oh, well, I didn't really get into learning it. So you're telling me something is like not working, but you've taken zero time to learn the tool or the technology, right? And AI, unfortunately, is a dangerous one. It's like one of those things to like, I know enough to be dangerous. We've all heard that term
Yeah,
before.
yeah, yeah.
That is a real estate agent or a loan officer with AI that is doing absolutely zero education or research on how to use it, because you could tell they're like, oh, I wonder if they used AI to do this social post. You could damn well tell that they did, or that they wrote this or they wrote that, because they basically just copied and pasted it. And they're like, wow, that looks shitty. Because guys, you got to understand, the AI, as good as it is about a low rent copywriter, right? And
Yep.
it's not great, right? And so you can't just like take the shit verbatim. You got to put your own stuff to it. But that, they look for the easy button. Oh, I could just post this and I could do all that stuff. Now, the agents and loan officers that I know that are like weaponizing AI because they're like, hey, this is a cool tool that's going to save me time, and I know if I learn it, I'm going to be able to like be heads and above of my colleagues that are not, and so they're getting into it and they're doing some cool shit, right? And so
Like
like
what
that.
though? Give me an example of like what? I mean, look, ChatGPT you mentioned, fantastic stuff. I think from
Mhm.
a thought provoker, I think from a brainstormer, it can be a fantastic co-pilot.
Mhm.
Okay. But as you sort of go past the kind of like the, content side of things, I know there's calendar systems and there's, things that can help you with your CRM, and there's other tools that are out there, but like, I really don't know what they are. And part of it too, I look and go, Jay, I don't want any bot or any AI system starting to tell me what I'm doing in my day with my calendar. Like, you're going here. Why? Because the robot told you to go there.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So like, as far as like the cool, so again, this comes from my world of like seeing like the cool stuff that I've seen, like with AI, like the image generation is a big one, right? Like the image generation that you could do with AI is actually really, really freaking cool, right? Like there's some cool stuff you could do, but I'll give you a true example, right? And this is something I did a whole session on this to train
image generation for what? Like a content strategy?
Or just like, hey, I need a content of like, I need a picture of like an old couple in front of a house, right?
Okay,
with like,
something
like that, right? Like, and it will generate something that looks pretty damn real, right? Now, here's an example of like the cool stuff that I've seen loan officers be able to do. Now, and this is the thing that like they wouldn't, without AI, they're either hiring someone to do it, because they would never ever be able to do it, because they're just not like, they're not good copywriters, they're not good like at visualizing this stuff or whatever. They also is the lift to do these things would be so much that they're like, I'm not going to do it, right? But I'll give you an example, right? Now, if I did like I'll give you two examples. One is I created like an ebook, a guide. I called it an ebook. It was of like hidden areas within, Dallas Fort Worth, right? And I did that. I generated all of that content for AI, right? And then I talked to someone that lived in that area, said, hey, is all this legit? They're like, yes. Right. So cool. AI came up with all the different things, came up with the format. I created blog posts, I created tweets, I created Facebook posts, I created all of that stuff with that. And it happened, almost instantaneously. Right. So like, from a loan officer perspective, if I want to do like lead magnets and some other cool things that are hyper local and that stuff, I'm not going to be able to do that just from scratch, right? Like an AI assistant tool will help me create all that and actually write the content and things of that nature. So cool. Now here's another thing is like, now that you can create your own GPTs, I have this one GPT now that was given to me by my buddy Scott Shang, who's like an AI master on this stuff. And so like, and he geeks out way more than I do. And so we spent the day together. He was at a conference. We just hung out, had lunch and stuff like that. So he's telling me he was giving me all like the background of all the like the cool AI shit that he's doing. So he gave me his GPT that he created with his brain. Now, for those that, and a lot of you, your listeners aren't going to know who Scott is, but Scott basically, he built his entire business blogging, right? As a mortgage broker. He blogged and he was getting, he sold his company. He sold his Find My Way Home. He sold it. He's getting 20, 30,000 hits a month, right? On this all organic blog, just, understanding SEO, understanding blogging, articles, that type of stuff, right? So this GPT now is that I could take a video transcript of anything, plug it into the GPT. It's going to create me 2 SEO optimized blog articles within, a minute, right? Yep. So that's great. So again, just think of time savings on that. Then it will also create social media post. It will create all these different pieces of content that if I'm looking at it from a real estate agent or a loan officer's perspective, there is no way I was able to do that. So to me, that's like a cool thing is that like, instead of that loan officer or agent not being able to do that at all, or having to pay money to someone to do all of this stuff who would have charged them, thousands of dollars to do all of that stuff, they now could get it. And technically you could use the GPT for free. See, right? So like now they're able to do all that
factor to it.
Yeah. That's where time it's saver, like, it's a time saver. It helps you like bounce things off. Another loan officer, created a GPT and he basically programmed it so that it would be like for you to practice your objection handling. Right. So it would say like, hey, I'm trying to sell this loan. I'm trying to, talk to this person about, being their listing agent, their buying agent. And so you go in then and you're like pitching your services and they come back and ask you questions. And then it gives you a score of like how well you did. So like, if you don't have someone to like role play with you or whatever to try, like, practice your stuff or your messaging, this will do you, it will grade you and stuff like that. So there's like, those are the cool things that you could do with AI, or then plug it in the Zapier and have it, spit out certain messages based off of logic. Like we're at like, you like baseball, right? Baseball. We are in the batter's box of AI right now. We haven't even stepped up to the plate. Like,
no,
we
listen,
are just.
I'm with you there.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with somebody last year about that, and he said to me, he said, you can't push back. He goes, that's like pushing back on the wheel.
Exactly. Yep.
Right. So it's okay. So where is it? So let me ask you this then. For anybody that's tuned in right now, that's going, okay, AI, for me, and understand everybody right now where I'm at, to me, this is going to help you tremendously with your content strategy, from executing to brainstorming to bouncing ideas off of. Jay, as you just said, from objection handling, that's not content strategy, but with the right prompts, you can play the game. And there's a lot of very cool things you can do.
Yep.
Anybody who's sitting here right now going, I'm still really fucking lost, and I really, need to do better. When we just, to kind of wrap the AI part up here, what would you suggest to anybody as an action step today if they're like, well, I want to learn more. I'm told like I should do more with it, but I really don't know what to do with it. What would you say to go and do? And it's not with AI, but how could somebody figure it out right now? What should they do to leverage it for their life and or business right now?
Yeah. So there's two things. One is, so here's the thing, guys. And I'm going to put my coach's hat on, right? I'm just going to throw my mindshare 101 coach's hat.
By the way, that is a sweet hat, man.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I call this the Gary V edition. And the reason why, so you should share this out to your audience, but guys, when Gary Vaynerchuk was a speaker at one of my events when I was at EPM, so was Dave, by the way. Right. And so Dave was a speaker. And so he got in with Gary V and he's like, hey, here's he's trying to give him his hat, get a picture with his hat. Gary V decided to rock it. And so when you see his keynote on stage wearing a backwards black hat, it's the Mindshare 101 hat, right? So anyway, just a quick aside.
That was cool. I remember after the fact, I went up to him, like I gave him a shot in the arm, and I'm like, dude, that was fucking cool. And I looked at the two bouncers he had on either side. I'm like, oh, these guys are big. And then he just hit me back. He's like, I knew you'd fucking like that. I'm like,
oh yeah, he rocked it on stage. So that was cool, right? Was so he got way more out of it than just like taking a picture with it. But here's the answer to this, right, guys? And again, I say this with all due love and respect and everything else, guys. We don't have a knowing problem in our industry. Like, we have a doing problem. And here's the thing is that, like, this is 2024. If you don't know where to go to learn how to do this stuff, then you got some big challenges, guys. YouTube, right? Look it up, right? Check it out. Google, right? Maybe you've heard of it. And guys, like, you could find 1,000,001 tutorials from a real estate agent, from a mortgage professional, right? From anybody on there about how to use ChatGPT, how to use AI, how these people are utilizing AI. There's workshops, there's trainings that I paid for trainings to learn for people. I've tapped in the people that I know that are like Scott, that are like rocking AI. I've gone on YouTube to learn how to do certain shit. And then here's the biggest thing. Play around with it, come up with some crazy idea and try to figure out how to make it work, guys. Like, we have gotten into like the experiment. Like, we don't want to like experiment. We want everything just handed to us and just ready to go. It works. And I don't have to do any friggin' work, guys. Like, this is why you're going to lose compared to someone that does want to like put in here. I'm not telling you to spend your whole life doing it, but just spend a freaking hour, right? Spend an hour.
Just went through my mind when you said that. Alexander Graham Bell, Thomas Edison, the Wright brothers. If they just had it handed to them, well, no. If they didn't tinker and try and fail and then try again and then try again and again and again and again and again and again, we wouldn't have planes, we wouldn't have light bulb, electricity, we wouldn't have, phones. So what you just said, you can't just be handed to you. If you don't want to work for it, you can't just expect it to be delivered to you.
Yeah. Like, I mean, that's the thing is that I think in our industry, we've gotten out of that stage, right? We've gone out of the stage of actually like willing to do it. Like, and guys, and that's what I'm saying is that, like, if you don't know to go on YouTube to look on how to like learn something, then I don't know what to tell you, right? Like, that should be just second nature. Yeah. Right. Going on Google. And here's the other thing. You want to learn how to use it? Guess what? You could use the damn tool itself to teach you and train you how to use the damn tool. Right. Like, that's what AI is about. Right. So, like, guys, like you shouldn't. And look, I get it. And here's the thing. Don't think that for 1 second I'm not empathetic. I'm passionate. I'm driven for you to win, right? This isn't about me winning. I'm a coach. My success only comes with the success of my members.
Yep.
Right. Period. Right. So just know that when I'm saying these things, it's because of my passion to see you win, and to stop lying to yourself and telling yourself excuses on why you can't do something. Right. And just know that like, it's not really that hard, but here's the thing. I get that it's overwhelming. You don't do well with technology and all these other things. But here's the thing is that if you're going to give yourself those limiting beliefs, then guess what? You're going to have a limited life, and you don't want a limited life. I don't know anyone that wakes up wanting to be average. Right. They want to be whatever version of that is success. Right. It doesn't mean like they're making billions of dollars. It could be like, hey, I'm making like 70K a year. I'm able to, I'm able to take care of my family, vacation, whatever it is. Right. Your version of happiness is success. Right. Mm-hmm. But the point is that like whatever that happens to be, you got to be willing to put in the work and effort to get to that point. Right. And just know that like, everything's out there, that we are living in an age. And I always joke around, like, cause I mentioned I'm an engineer by trade, but I see IT guys complain like, like my last company and the IT guys was like, oh, I'm trying to do this or whatever. I'm like, you guys have no idea how easy you have it. Right. Like I had to go up on dial-up modems and CD-ROMs.
It's true though, man. The access to information is there.
Like you guys just have to look at Google or YouTube and you're going to have someone walk you through how to do all of that shit. Right. Like, so like, you know what I mean? Like we are in an age where things are just so easy to find, but yet we still are challenged to find the answers or do all that stuff. Guys, like that's our own limiting beliefs that cause that to happen. And you need to break through, right? You need to break through and get out of your own head, because here's the deal, right? No one's going to come and save you. Like it's going to be up to you one way or another. And here's another thing. You're going to do the work one way or another, where you pay for a coach, pay for someone else, you're going to do the work. The question is how hard do you want it to be? Do you want it to be like super, like, just let me stumble over everything and figure it out? Or am I going to reach out, go to YouTube, spend time on whatever it is to actually find the answer, so I could change the delta of time to get where I want to go and decrease that by like 80%, right? That's really the choice that you have.
Buddy, we've been speaking on this episode 300 special about mastering magnetic marketing. And we talked about industry trends. We talked about success strategies for both realtors and mortgage professionals. I think we've covered the gamut today. When you look and say, we've talked about the two different audiences being the people we know and the people we don't know, how to connect with both of them. We've talked about the fact that, you've got a ton of different marketing ideas out there, from the online to the offline. And we dove into online lead gen. We dove into content strategies. We talked about AI today. We've looked at, you've brought up even flyers and mailers and emails. We've talked about the belly to belly and the importance of that. And I think what you just said right there at the end is that at the end of the day, it's going to come down to, what you need to do on a daily. And in fact, maybe I'll ask you that in sort of a summary there. What would you suggest as daily actions for everybody tuned in? Again, as we talk about all this marketing, and I want to say to everybody right now, beyond just listening to the Mindshare podcast, follow this guy. Okay. Go over to Insta. I know it's at The Real CMO. Follow him, talk about thought leader, talk about marketing, talk about ideas, talk about brainstorming, and just, really hitting home with some blunt delivery. Make sure that you're following Jason through the different channels that are online, so that you can get another opinion, another way of looking at it. Because as you know, with me, I'm very real. I'm very blunt about things. I'm not sugarcoating stuff. I'm not pointing in a direction that doesn't have impact. And I'm not telling you this is the only direction to go. What we're trying to do is hit home with some real life actionable tools and things that you can be doing to really truly grow you and your business. And in this case today, it's been very much around marketing. So Jay, what would you suggest as daily actions, call it non-negotiables, for anybody who does want to build and maintain more relationships with just more people? Because naturally, one, it's going to make you a happier person. Two, from a business perspective, sure, it's going to feed the bottom line.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day is, because like guys, the actions are going to be particular to how you're running your business and things of that nature. But here's the thing, is that you should be touching your database every day. Understand this difference. Stop calling them your past database or your past clients. They're your clients. you should be talking to them.
Love
right?
that.
You don't need permission. You should be talking to them. You help them. You serve them. You're not selling snake oil, right? You're not trying to put them into a bad situation. You're trying to help them. So every single day you should be going through your database to stay in touch with your clients, right? That's action item number one, right? Number two is every single day. Because here's the thing is that I always look at, and I know David will appreciate this, but when you're talking about the people you know, right? Every single prospect or person you talk to, especially a client, is that should be 5 other introductions that you get from that one person. And guess what? Every single connection, positive connection from that 5, guess what? Should breed you another 5, right? And then another 5, another 5. If you really put time into understanding that and just do referral prospecting 24/7, you're going to create all the business that you can handle, right? If you want to do that, right? So you should be but at the bottom line is you should be having conversations with people every single day in one form or another, right? Whether it's I'm spending an hour a day engaging with people on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, TikTok, right? Instagram, Facebook, probably a little bit easier on the engagement piece, right? I should be reaching out to people, my clients, right? I should be consistently putting out messaging and content out there to create conversations. You should be doing everything and anything that you can to create conversations for yourself every single day and have conversations, right? Like David mentioned, if you just talk to one person new every single day, that's 365 people. If you're planning on being in this business, right, for let's call it 5 years, right? That's over 1,500 people that you're going to know in 5 years that are new right now. If you take that power of 5 to each one of those people, then what do you have? Right. What do you have after
big
that?
Numbers, man.
These are big numbers. And so I think, if I'm looking at daily actions, well, journaling is a big one for me. And I know it's not easy for everyone to do.
You brought that up.
Journaling is a big one for me. So I would say definitely do that. But here's the thing is that you got to have conversations every single day. You cannot go a day with not having a conversation with somebody. Right. Somebody that's going to move your business forward. Right. So a client, having conversations with a client is going to move your business forward. Yes. Right. Is having a conversation with a leader, a prospect going to move your business forward? Yes. Having a conversation with a real estate agent. Yes. Having a conversation with, someone else that's in your BNI or business network. Yes. Right. Have conversations. The more people you know, the more business you're going to do. It's not a complicated formula. Right. You just have to take the action.
Well said, my friend. So now, as we wrap this one up and we look to the end of the show, the end of the day, and you've done these things for you to grow your business, you've journaled to grow your mindset, to be positive. Day's over. How do you know it's been a successful day for you, Mr. Fraser?
So I use so I did a program called 75 Hard. I don't know if it ever caught on.
Dude, I remember that. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, so I did 75 Hard, right? And so for those that don't know what 75 Hard is, it's you do, and this goes into the getting tired of doing the same thing every single day. 75 Hard it's not a fitness challenge. Now I lost over 60 pounds doing it, right? But it's a mental toughness challenge. Now, what you do is you do 2 workouts a day, 2 45-minute workouts a day. One of them has to be outside. You read 10 pages of a personal or professional development book. You stick to a diet, no cheat meals. You take a progress picture, right, of yourself, no alcohol, and you do all of this for 75 days straight. Now, no exceptions. There's no hey, well, I could try. Oh, sorry. And you drink a gallon of water every day. Right. So I did this for 75 days straight. Right. And I was over what the catalyst for me was I was 315 pounds or whatever it was. I was ballooned up. Right. And so I was you know what? I can't keep living like this. I can't keep doing it. I had been listening to Andy Frisella, is the founder of 75 Hard. He's the founder of First Form, big fitness company in the States here. And he has a podcast called Real AF. And he had the MCEO experience or project right before that. And so I did that. And so from doing that, I learned one of his main ways of growth was called the power list. And so what it was is the power list are 5 critical tasks that you do every single day. And if you do those 5 critical tasks, and it's not like tasks could be like, oh, I took out the trash. Like for example, calling your clients would be a critical task, right?
Okay.
Like calling 1 client, 2 client is an example. Now, the purpose of doing that is if I do those 5 critical tasks every single day, at the end of the week, I look in, if did I do that every day? Great, I won my week, right? If I did that, I won my day. Now, these tasks should be so much that essentially is like, hey, if I did my 5 critical tasks by noon, right? Then like, hey, I won my day. I'm good. Everything else is just gravy. So that's how I choose how I win my day is I have my power list that I go through and it's non-negotiable. It's my power list, my critical tasks. I do that every single day. And then if I go through that, I win my day. Now, here's the thing. You're not going to win every day. Some days you're not going to get to your critical tasks or whatever. So don't think that like I win every single day, right? Maybe I'm 3 out of 4, maybe I'm 2 out of 5, right? 3 out of 5, maybe I'm 2 out of 5, right? But the point is that I'm striving to do those every single day. I'm not perfect. Like I'm going to fall off just like anybody else.
Yeah.
But the point is that I have it. I have my barometer of success and how I'm going to win my day and ultimately my week. And here's the thing. You do that for 4 weeks straight, 5 weeks straight, 10 weeks straight. Do you think your business will be better? Do you think your life will be better? Do you think you'll be happier if you keep winning and stacking those wins? Absolutely.
Hands down. That's the process of mapping that we teach our clients, from a stage, from a group training, from a coaching perspective, mapping, right? And if you understand what you're mapping out every day, you've got a destination and you map it out properly, you're going to get there. And then, you're going to win the hour, you're going to win the day, you're going to win the week, you're going to win the month, you're going to get to where you want to go.
Yep.
So my man, we're final words, any words of wisdom to help everybody get out there, build more mindshare. Where can they connect with you and make sure that they stay in tune with what you're up to and all the amazing value you provide on a regular basis?
Yeah. So if they want to subscribe, they could go to Growth Notes. They have to subscribe because I can't just send texts out to people. You have to subscribe. Cool. So it's growthtexts.com. So growthtext.com, and you could go through there and put in your phone number and subscribe, and I'll send you my daily thoughts on growth and success. So that's number 1. Number 2, Instagram's a good one, Real CMO, right? Because just engage and connect with me on there. Facebook, everywhere else, there too. But ultimately, like the growth text could do that. And if you're a licensed, I do have a few Canadians in my accelerator. But I am the number 1 mortgage marketing community on School. Now, the thing is, it's not going to work for agents. It's only available to licensed loan officers, but it's on School. It's called BMX to Broker Marketing Accelerator, and it's free right now until the end of this month. But that's where I share a lot of, free content and stuff like that, success calls and things of that nature to help you win, and doesn't cost you anything. But those are the 3 areas that you can connect with me on, and look forward to, connecting with whoever. And, I'm here to help. My purpose is to help, right? Solve problems and help people.
There it is, guys. You heard it again. The word help. It always comes down to some of those people that are the most successful out there. And we do not define success by just how much money you're making. Moreover, the mindset that you've got and the way you operate in a day. And Jay, we talk about help. I thank you, brother. I thank you for all the help you've provided to me over the years that we've known each other, the guidance, the mentorship, the collaboration, the thought-provoking conversations we've had, the fact that there's been times where I've said, hey, I'm going to do, and you're like, dude, don't even go near it. And there's other times where you're like, bro, you have to be doing this, just like you pushed to do this podcast. So a big thank you for it all. A thank you for joining me today. And again, a major thank you for helping me and pushing me to achieve sort of this milestone right here of episode 300, brother. Again, if it wasn't for you, this show didn't even come to life. So I'm grateful for you, bro. I thank you for joining us today.
Well, hey man, thank you for having me. I appreciate everything that you said. And like I said, you're one of my dudes, man. I love you, man. And
Likewise,
anything
brother,
that I could do and to help, and it's been my privilege and pleasure, and I'm blessed to call you a friend. So
likewise, bro. Likewise, but I can't wait to connect again very shortly, man. Thank you very much for the time today.
Absolutely, man.
All right, buddy. You are either watching this episode or you're listening to this episode. Maybe you're watching it. You're on your favorite podcast platform. Maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. Please be sure to take a moment to go to www.realtorscareontario.ca/ride to donate today. Again, this ride is happening this week. We are on our final push right now to raise as much awareness and as much money as we possibly can. Every little bit counts. So once again, that's www.realtors with an S, realtorscareontario.ca/ride. Also, please don't forget to leave a review of this podcast at www.ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. Connect with me on Facebook, on TikTok at mindshare101, and on Instagram at David Greenspan 101. I want to say a big thank you to Kids Keep in Touch Systems, REM Magazine, and the ORCF, the Ontario Realtors Care Foundation, for sponsoring this episode. This has been another episode of the Mindshare Podcast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Now go make that donation. Thanks, everybody.